Hello all, this is Thambi Medabala, Junior Scientific Officer in Exercise Physiology. So in this video, I would be talking about the cardiovascular system and respiratory system, cardiorespiratory adaptations to the exercise. And in first video, I would be talking about the CVS, cardiovascular system, and second video, RS, respiratory system, and their details of short and long-term adaptation in both systems and the coupling uh, adaptation of cardiorespiratory system together to the regular training. Let us start with the CVS first. Coming to the CVS adaptations to the regular exercise. So in my lecture, I would be dealing about the chronic and acute cardiovascular adaptations to the regular exercise, and also I addressing something about the preparedness of the CVS to the to acute metabolic demands due to ongoing exercise and chronic adaptive responsiveness or preparedness of the CVS to the extreme exercise demand, and the peripheral changes of the CVS like tissue level changes with the metabolic consequences, and the chronic modulations of the heart to the regular exercise. That means the structural change in the heart itself, the cavity of the heart, how the heart cavity changes according to kind of exercise, and the capillary growth response due to regular exercise and all, usually seen in this lecture. And coming to the cardiac output. So the cardiac output is a product of stroke volume and heart rate. So here the stroke volume means the amount of blood being pumped by left ventricle or right ventricle. So LV, left ventricle or right ventricle. So how much amount of the blood in ml being pumped by one ventricle, either left or right. So that is called stroke volume, the volume of blood being pumped by the stroke. And heart rate. The heart rate usually, the resting heart rate lies from 60 to 100 beats per minute in non-exercising population or sedentary population, or in endurance elite athlete you may find the heart rate just below, the resting heart rate below 40. So that depends on the kind of adaptation, depends on the years of training and personal fitness. So coming to the point, is the cardiac output is a product of stroke volume and heart rate. So the stroke volume again depends on many factors. So I would be discussing in further videos. So here the augmentation of the cardiac output, CO, is central determinant of maximal oxygen consumption, is defined by the Fick equation. So the Fick equation, we must understand the Fick equation is a product of cardiac output and arteriovenous oxygen difference. A stands for arterial, V stands for the venous. So arteriovenous difference of the oxygen content and cardiac output, these are the product of VO2, means the maximum oxygen consumption during the exercise. VO2 max means VO2 max, the maximum consumption during high intensity exercise. The ability of utilizing the amount of oxygen by an individual to the extreme exercise is known as VO2 max. Right. Now, so the take-home message of this statement is the cardiac output, the CO, is exclusively a function of VO2 max. So the VO2 max is exclusively the function of metabolic demand. So metabolic demands means how hard you doing the exercise. So what type of exercise, how the exercise intensity is, what is your exercise intensity, how hard you doing the exercise. So this is all triggers the metabolic demand. So if you do maximum exercise, so automatically your metabolic demand also high, very high. So that proportionate to your VO2 max. VO2 max or VO2 oxygen consumption also high. At the same time, cardiac output also high in order to meet the demands of metabolic requirement due to exercise. Next, now the cardiac output means the amount of the blood being pumped by 1 minute. So we assess in terms of liters per minute. How many liters of blood usually pumped by minute by your heart, right? So this is right ventricle, left ventricle. So how many liters by this, how many liters by this, because the heart always pumps simultaneously either sides by right ventricle and left ventricle. So left ventricle pumps to the systemic circulation and the right ventricle pumps into the pulmonary circulation. So obviously from systemic circulation blood go back to the right heart, that is atrium, and ventricle then go to the pulmonary circulation. From here it comes back to the left atrium, go down and into the left ventricle and again into the arch of aorta. This is cells, systemic circulation, it supplies to the cells, the oxygen releases here. So the deoxygenated blood again go back to the right atrium. This is how the circulation occurs. Pulmonary, this is pulmonary circulation, this is systemic circulation, major circulatory system, minor circulatory system. And the cardiac output now is approximately maybe 20 liters. If I am doing exercise, my cardiac output may raises up to the 20 liters because I am a non-exercising person. Considering that I am sedentary person, so my cardiac output can touches up to 20 liters. So remember, these numbers are arbitrary numbers, so not exactly. So it can vary from person to person, depends on the level and surface area, body surface area, fitness and all. So in case of elite athletes, your cardiac output, the minute volume output by your heart may touches up to 40 liters. This is what I would like to stress on this statement. Now, this wide variability of cardiac output in part explains the wide range in maximal VO2. So the VO2 max also varies, so from minimal to maximal. So the maximal, this is minimal VO2 max. If I start my exercise, if I give my exercise status with the graded exercise protocol, my oxygen consumption may touches around 45 ml per kg per minute. So the consumption of oxygen by kilogram of my body flesh reaches up to 45. It may be 35, 45, and even in elite athletes, endurance athletes, particularly endurance athlete, trained athlete, world class athlete, it may touches up to 85 or even beyond the 85 ml per kg per minute. So that means in resting state, 1 kilogram of body flesh, body consumes 4.5 to 5 ml per kg. This is resting oxygen consumption. When you perform the high intensity exercise in world class athlete, you may see 85 ml. So the huge difference of oxygen consumption. This is also proportionate to your cardiac output. So ultimately the range of VO2 max is very high, relatively untrained athlete or untrained or sedentary population. So as I mentioned, the stroke volume SV is augmented during the aerobic exercise by a synergetic increase in diastolic volume, that is preload and myocardial contractility and many factors. So if you want further details of how stroke volume is affected and usually how the Frank-Starling's law operates in the heart, so preload, afterload and all in this video. If you are interested, you can go through this the link given here for further details of the stroke volume. So now the stroke volume is purely depends on many factors: venous return and contractility and preload, how much blood is filled in the diastolic part of the cardiac cycle, and thoracic pump. So these are the many factors influences your stroke volume. I already have mentioned stroke volume means amount of blood being pumped by one stroke by the left as well as right ventricle, left or right ventricle. The stroke volume further depends on many factors: genetics, sex, age, endurance training, status. Usually the stroke volume, normal volume lies around 50 to 75 ml per stroke. It can increase the several fold. It, however, depends on the type of exercise that we perform, age, sex, genetics and status of your training, years of how many years of training you undergone. So these are all depends, these are all factors influences particularly the stroke volume. For example, this in case of 20 years men performing the exercise with maximum heart rate of 200 beats per minute with maximum cardiac output 20 and 35 liters per minute respectively will have the maximal stroke volume of 100 ml or 175 ml respectively. Suppose if cardiac output is 35 liters per minute, so probably his stroke volume may be 175 ml per beat. If it is 20 liters, it may be around 100 ml. Right. So the cardiac output usually in resting state we find approximately 5 to 6 liters per minute. This is minute cardiac output. Right, 5 to 6 liters per minute in resting state. Let's move on next slide. The once stroke volume plateaus, the stroke volume usually increases along with the exercise, and once it reaches certain level, it stays plateau. So it no longer increases further exponentially. This is exponential. So suppose this is stroke volume, this is time of exercise. So stroke volume increases up to approximately 185 beats per minute. Thereafter it may not increase further and it may stay constantly high. So this is what the statement says, but cardiac output would be increased despite of constant plateau of stroke volume only because of heart rate. So that means cardiac output would be increased during the exercise. Stroke volume obviously increase up to certain level, up to 185 beats per minute, and thereafter heart rate increases further and further. So more and more heart rate increases, so obviously it achieves the cardiac output, high cardiac output. So here cardiac output is a product of stroke volume and heart rate. Stroke volume also increases, but not as heart rate increases. Stroke volume increases up to certain level, thereafter it constantly stay high. It will not increases exponentially, and heart rate would take over and further try to reach the maximum cardiac output during the exercise. Now progressive aerobic exercise to maximal capacity, the heart rate rises to a linear fashion at the rate of approximately 10 beats per minute per 3.5 ml per kg per minute increase oxygen demand. So this is called 1 MET, so metabolic equivalent. So for 3.5 ml of oxygen consumption to the kg of body flesh per minute, okay, that determines approximately 10 beats per minute. For example, if heart rate is around 150 HR, to increase 160, it further add on 3.5 ml of oxygen consumption to the existing oxygen consumption, and again it add on 3.5 for 170, so on. It add on or it required 3.5 ml of oxygen consumption for kg body mass by increasing 10 beats per minute in order to achieve the metabolic demand due to oxygen due to exercise. And secondly, as the exercise increases, the intensity of exercise increases with the highest heart rate. So in peak exercise, we may find heart rate reaching approximately 200 beats per minute. At the highest exercise, may causes actually decreasing the left ventricular filling rate. So that may possibly resulting reduced cardiac output CO in the extreme exercise. So extreme exercise so may reduces the cardiac output. So gradually increases the cardiac output in certain level. After that may decreases something like this. So this is how the extreme exercise minimizes the ventricular filling. In cardiac cycle, the ventricle has to fill sufficiently in order to pump the maximum amount of blood. So the filling rate, this is the filling rate during the relaxation. So during relaxation, the heart expands, the cavity expands. As it expands, the blood from both atrium fills into the or pumps into the ventricle. So during the extreme exercise with the highest heart rate, so the filling time, particularly the filling time of ventricle decreases. Filling time of ventricle decreases. So in that consequently decreases the stroke volume. That is how the maximum highest exercise may reduces the cardiac output only because of reduction of the filling phase time in the cardiac cycle. And coming to the chronic cardiac adaptation to the regular training, the changes, serious changes in chronic adaptation are more or less similar. The chronic adaptation of CVS to the regular training particularly prepares the CVS to tackle any kind of extreme exercise situation for the longer time. So that is how the chronic adaptation will help the CVS to sustained, in other words, sustained for the longer time with the highest intensity of exercise by an individual. So an individual can sustain the longer time with the highest output or highest ability of cardiovascular system. So this is how the chronic adaptations will help the CVS to prepare the individual to tackle the situation. So in chronic adaptation, we can grossly divide the endurance exercise and strength exercise. So endurance exercise is characterized by the sustained elevation of the cardiac output with the reduced peripheral vascular resistance. So here the cardiac output times peripheral resistance, the resistance of the blood vessel, the resistance in the blood vessel against to the blood column. Suppose this is a blood vessel, the blood is moving towards this direction. So this is the column of blood moving in this direction. So now the resistance offered by the wall of the blood vessel against the blood column, this is blood column moving direction, this is moving direction. So now the since blood vessel is elastic in nature, blood vessel is always try to recoil in normal situation. If blood is not there in the blood vessel, blood vessel becomes very narrow. So it try to recoil. That means the blood vessel has the capacity of elastic nature, recoiling nature, elasticity is more. So when blood is moving through the blood vessel, so there is a resistance against the blood column. So that is called peripheral resistance. During the exercise, particularly endurance exercise, the peripheral resistance on the blood column will decreases, so that ultimately it facilitates more pumping capacity of the blood. So now the peripheral resistance and cardiac output, so is the product of blood pressure. Blood pressure is a product of peripheral resistance, cardiac output. Cardiac output is a product of stroke volume and heart rate, right? So now the BP, usually blood pressure having the systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure. So the peripheral resistance of the blood vessel determines your diastolic blood pressure. The resistance of the blood wall, arterial wall on the blood column would determines the diastolic blood pressure, the minimum pressure recorded during one cardiac cycle. The systolic blood pressure, the maximum pressure recorded during the systole of the cardiac cycle. So this is entirely depends on the cardiac output. So cardiac output is the one determines the systolic blood pressure, peripheral resistance is the one determines the diastolic blood pressure. So blood pressure here is the product of cardiac output and peripheral resistance. Peripheral resistance means the resistance of the blood vessel or pressure of the blood vessel, walls of the blood vessel falling on the moving blood column on the blood. So that is called peripheral resistance. So this coming to the strength training characterized by the short but intense bout of increased peripheral resistance and only slightly elevated cardiac output. So cardiac output increases enormously in the endurance training, whereas the cardiac output increases little bit in the strength training, because strength training is characterized by the short burst of intense bout of increased peripheral resistance. So the peripheral resistance is very high in the strength training. So high peripheral resistance means, so it minimizes the cardiac output. Cardiac output would be minimized. So the examples of strength training is weightlifting, track field, throwing events and all. Cycling, rowing, swimming, distance running are the examples of the endurance training. So left ventricle, coming to the left ventricle or ventricular cavity, how the ventricular cavity adapted to the regular training. So I would be discussing so very simplified manner, diagrammatic representation. So the long term adaptation in the heart, structural change. So how the structural changes of heart is seen in the endurance training as well as resistance training. So here the endurance training, what happens, this changes what we see in the heart is known as eccentric, whereas resistant training, the changes what we see in the heart is concentric. So this is the major difference. So simple for remembrance, endurance training, E for E, eccentric left ventricular hypertrophy. Hypertrophy means increasing the size. So this is untrained athlete's heart. For comparison, so this is left ventricular size, here this is left ventricular cavity volume. The volume here increased. So here the volume may not increase much, but thickness, the wall thickness is left ventricular wall thickness, okay, increases. Here left ventricular volume increases. Here you can make out thickness of the wall increasing, here the volume cavity size increasing. This is the major difference between the trained athletes of endurance training and resistant training. So here bilateral enlargement of the cavity is seen in the endurance training, whereas the mild left ventricular hypertrophy is seen in the resistant training. So no doubt the overall size of the heart increases in both cases, but here the cavity increases, here the thickness of the wall increases. The major reason is the thickness of wall in the resistant training increases because resistant training has got increased peripheral resistance. Increased peripheral resistance would put the maximum pressure on the left ventricle. In order to pump the blood into the systemic circulation, the left ventricle has to overcome the maximum pressure lying in the great vessels or arteries. So in order to achieve that, left ventricle has to generate the majority or maximum blood pressure. So in case of the endurance training or aerobic training, the left ventricle doesn't have to push the blood with the maximum pressure, and here the cavity increases because of endurance training required sustained cope up of the cardiovascular system activity. So cardiovascular system has to work for the longer time with the sustained elevated workout. So these are the major differences of structural modulations or structural implications of the heart in respect to the different training, endurance or resistant training. Coming to the peripheral adaptations. So what kind of peripheral adaptation? Periphery means peripheral, the far away or external or extreme. So peripheral adaptation means the adaptation of the vasoconstrictor or vasodilators of small blood vessels, particularly which runs towards the skeletal muscle, small arteries or arterioles. So here the vasodilators are mainly the prostacyclin and nitric oxide NO. So NO, otherwise known as endothelial derived factor. So this since nitric oxide synthesized from the endothelium and secretes back into the smooth muscles of the blood vessel and causing the relaxation. This is ATP and ADP, and these ATP driven nitric oxide synthesis and prostaglandin synthesis in the blood vessels, small blood vessels, would causing the relaxation, particularly with the submaximal exercise and resting state, whereas vasoconstrictors are the norepinephrine, endothelin 1 and thromboxane A2. So this endothelin 1 secretes from the endothelium and thromboxane A2 secretes from the activated platelets. So these would promote the vasoconstrictor. Vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction means decreasing the size of arterial or blood vessel radius, decreasing the size or radius of the blood vessel. Vasodilation means increasing the radius or size of the blood vessel, radius, particularly the lumen. So this is how the endurance training on the vasodilators or vasoconstrictor involve the regulation of the skeletal muscle blood flow. So when we switch on the exercise, so particularly we may use the lower body muscles. Suppose I'm running, so the running or jogging with the submaximal or maximal exercise, so required the blood supply to the lower extremities to maximum extent. Rest of the area may require the blood supply, but not so high as we required in the lower part. So blood supply is essentially redistributes towards the exercising muscles during the exercise. So this is one of the mechanism, local mechanism, peripheral adaptation or peripheral physiological implications, which diverts the blood particularly to the exercising muscles. Redistribution, we can say redistribution of the blood supply to the exercising muscles. So, and this is one of the modulation, the blood vessels, micro blood vessels, so called capillaries. So regular training, regular physical activity would increases the angiogenesis. So vascular endothelial growth factors would stimulated by various means, hypoxia, passive stress, stretch, shear stress. So these are the promoting factors. Hypoxia means lack of supply of oxygen, hypoxemia. Passive stretch, so dynamic exercise. Usually exercise in sports are the mainly dynamic exercise. Dynamic exercise puts lot of stretch on the muscles, exercising muscles, and stress. Exercise is kind of stress. So these are the promoting factors of progenesis. Pro means promotes. Angiogenesis. Angio means blood vessels. Genesis means production. So angiogenesis. So angiogenesis would usually triggers or facilitates in the regular training. So these are the anti-angiogenic compounds. The balance usually shifts towards the green here. Regular training shifts the balance towards the green, so that it promotes the more capillary growth to the continuously participated muscles in order to achieve the maximum oxygen, or in order to extract the maximum nutrients which supports the metabolic demands of those particular exercising muscles on long run. So these are all comes under the peripheral adaptations. So regulation of the again the skeletal muscle blood flow during the exercise, how the skeletal muscle usually redistributes during the exercise, right? So the endothelial cells also involved, and skeletal muscle involved, red blood cells involved. So nitric oxide, as I mentioned earlier, ATP and other promoting factors from the endothelium, skeletal muscles and red blood cells addresses the smooth muscle physiological response. So that is comes from the cellular source. Ultimately, the exercising muscles facilitated more and more blood supply due to redistribution with the all mechanism. So this mechanism includes the conducted vasodilation, endothelial mediated dilation, mechanically included and mechanically induced and chemically induced. So these are the mechanical and chemical induced factors of endothelial mediated dilations and muscle contraction metabolism, functional sympatholysis. So these are the promoting factors of smooth muscle facilitation in order to relax or contract at the various levels of the body, so that in order to distribute the blood to the particular exercising muscle. For example, these muscles are involving the exercise, the leg muscles. So these particular leg muscles facilitated majority of redistribution of the blood. These are all peripheral adaptation of CVS is concerned. And so far we have seen the acute and chronic responses of CVS and preparedness of the CVS to the acute and chronic metabolic demands and peripheral changes, particularly in the smooth muscle and particularly in the capillary smooth muscles, endothelial cells, and the local growth factors and local factors, how they modulates or mediates the response of the blood vessels to the exercise in order to redistribute the blood, and the eccentric intrinsic heart manipulation or modulation, hypertrophy in response to the endurance training and resistant training, and capillary growth response and capillary response, and how the capillaries responds to the metabolites and other mediators in order to grow, in order to increase their growth, and in order to redistribute the blood. This is all about the CVS and their adaptive changes to the regular training. And in next video we would be discussing about the respiratory system and their adaptations. Coming to the respiratory system. So respiratory system learning outcomes are I would be dealing about the structural organization of the respiratory system, structural adaptation of the lung to the regular exercise, ventilatory response to meet the metabolic demand during the exercise, neural control, modulation of the respiratory system during exercise, and synergic action of the respiratory system along with the CVS and mechanism of ventilatory response or adaptation to the regular exercise. These are the learning outcomes of today's lecture as per respiratory system adaptations are concerned. So as we know, the respiratory system starts from the nostril. So nostril to the nasal cavity or pharyngeal cavity. The pipe go down as a trachea, bronchus, and then bronchiole. So left, right lungs, bronchus, bronchiole, further divided into bronchiole, finally respiratory bronchiole, alveolus. This is alveolus. So alveolus is a structural and functional unit of the respiratory system. So this lungs, so we have skeletal muscle or tissues. The oxygen from lung has to reach towards the tissue or cells. These cells are here, skeletal muscles. The oxygen has to move all the way here, from here to here. So we have the right left heart. The in this illustration, actually the arterial concentration or blood concentration or composition of the carbon dioxide, particularly during the resting, submaximal exercise or maximal exercise, how the carbon dioxide usually seen in the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery means is the mixed venous blood or deoxygenated blood, and systemic artery. So that is from left ventricle, as we know. So we have ventricles. This is right, this is left ventricle. From left ventricle we have arch of aorta, right ventricle, pulmonary trunk. So these are the atria. So here this area, this pulmonary artery is this, so which is supplying towards the lungs for the oxygenation process. Again blood vessels come back to the left atrium and then left ventricle and finally into the arch of aorta up to the cells or tissues. So here the normal oxygen, carbon dioxide tension is 47 millimeters of mercury at the resting state. So the venous blood which is there in the pulmonary artery, the concentration of the oxygen PO2, carbon dioxide, partial pressure of PCO2, carbon dioxide is 47 millimeters of mercury. During the maximal exercise it may reaches even 75 millimeters of mercury. The case in the systemic arteries is resting state. The arterial concentration or arterial partial pressure PaCO2, P means partial pressure, A means arterial CO2. Partial pressure of CO2 in the arteries or systemic arteries or oxygenated blood. This is all oxygenated blood, systemic circulation up to here, this are rich with oxygen. From here this is deoxygenated blood. So during the maximal exercise, the carbon dioxide concentration in the great vessels apparently decreases. So decreases, it may decreasing 30 or even below that, because the maximum carbon dioxide which is being generated during the high intensity exercise from the tissues, from the cells, has to eliminate. So that is around 75 millimeters of mercury partial pressure has to eliminate, which is being generated from here. So it has to eliminate it here. In the sense, the blood vessels which are running just below the alveoli are coming from the right ventricle. From here, pulmonary artery, small blood vessels, capillaries, pulmonary arteries and pulmonary capillaries. So this is the pulmonary capillary, pulmonary from which is coming from the pulmonary artery, branch of pulmonary artery, where we have maximum carbon dioxide during the maximum exercise, so which is being eliminated while they passes through capillaries across the alveoli. So the carbon dioxide has to go out, the oxygen will be reabsorbed. So this is how this completely system move on. So the cardiovascular system synchronized, synergetically acting with the respiratory system. And an overview: respiratory system adaptation is the specific changes that respiratory system undergoes in response to the demand of the physical exertion. So no doubt the physical activity is the one which triggers the physiological changes or modulation or adaptation in the any system. For instance, the intense physical exertion such as that involved in fitness training places the elevated demands of the respiratory system. The majority of the maximum demand towards the adaptation of the respiratory system would causes by the fitness training, structural physical activity. So over a time the respiratory system no doubt would undergo the adaptation. Respiratory adaptation is a physiological determinant of peak performance, and in elite athlete the pulmonary system is often a limiting factor to the exercise. So no doubt almost all systems has got certain limit, even cardiovascular system and respiratory system. So the respiratory system also one of the system which limits the maximum exercise once an athlete attain his or her maximum physical capacity. Coming to the neural control, so we have motor cortex, brainstem and proprioception. These are the three levels of the central nervous system which modulates or regulate the respiratory center response. So we have midbrain, pons, medulla oblongata, so neocortex, cerebellum, spinal cord. So this is spinal cord. So in between junction of the medulla and pons we have centers, so-called respiratory centers or cardiovascular centers. So these center has got a very synchronized connections in between, and these connections also having the collateral link from the higher centers, and also they receiving the information from the peripheral receptors. Those are called joints as a proprioception. So the respiratory system, the centers of the respiratory system lying in the medulla oblongata and pons junctional part, and along with the cardiovascular center, and this respiratory center receiving the collateral from the higher center as well as proprioceptors. Those are joint receptors. Breathing rate. What is breathing rate? So number of breaths per minute is called breathing rate. Usually normal person breathes 12 times per minute, and the breathing rate may increases approximately very high rate during the exercise from the resting state, and the endurance training typically result in increasing the respiratory rate. The respiratory rate increases because of the more demand of oxygen from tissue or exercising muscles. The lung capacity. What is lung capacity? The lung has got certain capacity. We have, as I mentioned, two lungs. These lungs are protected with the thoracic cage. We have ribs, sternum. This is thoracic cavity where two lungs are located. So these lungs are very soft and made up of with elastic collagen fibers with a lot of millions of alveoli. Those are known as cavities, alveolar cavities or alveoli, where air actually moves in and out, so gases for the gases exchanging process. And with adaptation, the lung capacity usually increases over a time, allowing the greater quantity of air move in and out in order to achieve the maximum exchanging process. That is called gases exchange, minute exchange. And endurance training typically result in increasing the tidal volume. The tidal volume means the amount of volume that being taken in or out per one normal breathing or one normal breath or one breath during the exercise. So tidal volume means simply amount of air move in or out for a quiet respiratory cycle. Tidal volume in normal circumstances may lies around 500 ml. During exercise, it may increases as high as 3000 ml per breath. So respiratory muscles, we have diaphragm. So as I mentioned, just below lungs, we have one skeletal muscle sheet which is separating the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. This is called diaphragm. So this diaphragm, intercostal muscles, the muscles present in between the ribs, those are called intercostal muscle. We have internal intercostal muscle, innermost intercostal muscle, and external intercostal muscles. There are different kinds of three kinds of the intercostal muscles arranged in the different manner as a three layers, and these result improving the ability of breathing more air for the longer amount of time with the less fatigue. So endurance training or regular training which increases the capacity of your strength or capacity of your respiratory muscles, those are diaphragm and intercostal muscles, which promotes or which facilitate a longer time of respiration, sustained respiratory response to the exercise in order to acquire the required oxygen from the atmosphere. Aerobic training typically improves the endurance of respiratory muscles, whereas the anaerobic training increases the size or strength of the respiratory muscles. Diaphragm, intercostal muscle, size, strength usually seen in the resisted kind of training, whereas endurance response or endurance ability seen in the endurance training or aerobic training. So lung capillaries, these capillaries are seen, the capillaries seen just lying below the alveoli. Alveoli is the final structural functional unit of the lung. Are the small cavities present in the lung. We have millions of alveoli where the carbon dioxide and oxygen moves across the respiratory membrane. Carbon dioxide go into the alveoli, oxygen would dissolve in the blood so that it moves to the systemic circulation. So here the systemic the pulmonary artery, which is rising from the pulmonary trunk, having the rich carbon dioxide. Here pulmonary vein consisting of rich oxygen, because carbon dioxide is eliminated, oxygen is taken into the blood. So the RBCs are the one which carries the gases. And the vascularization, more and more pulmonary capillaries increases to the regular training. It allows the blood flow and better exchanging, particularly better exchanging of the gases across the respiratory membrane. This enhances the uptake of oxygen since there is a greater surface area of the blood, area for the blood to bind with the hemoglobin. So the surface area, effective respiratory surface area, that means increasing capillaries would facilitate increasing the contact of alveoli with the capillaries in the lungs, so that increases the surface area. Normal respiratory alveolar surface area is 70 square meter. The total surface area of the alveoli or respiratory membrane in normal person, the area usually increases over a time because of increasing number of alveoli and number of capillaries, so that effective respiratory gases exchanging area would be increases, so that it facilitate more absorption of oxygen from the atmosphere into the pulmonary circulation. And the respiratory system, as I mentioned, the center of respiratory system, regulatory center of the respiratory system lying in the brain stem. So we have three ways of controlling the respiratory system or regulating the respiratory system. Mainly the central controller or central drive of the respiratory rhythm or respiratory rhythm pattern of the respiratory centers. So respiratory centers usually having the rhythmic firing nature. And secondly, distribution and synchronization of the respiratory motor output to the appropriate respiratory muscles. And lastly, the information receiving from the peripheral parts of the body to the central system or respiratory centers. So these are the main factors which modulates which controls the respiratory system in order to maintain the required ventilatory response to the exercise. Okay, so central command or central controller of respiratory rhythm and distribution of the synchronization of respiratory motor output. So how smoothly the output of respiratory center is required in order to achieve the goal of required demand. So and sensory, that absolutely depends on the sensory inputs to the respiratory centers. Here as I mentioned, we have respiratory centers in the brain which regularly firing and modulating, as I mentioned in the previous slide, and these centers firing communicated to the phrenic nerve, and this phrenic nerve supplies to the diaphragm, and diaphragm is the chief respiratory muscle which increases or decreases the thoracic cavity. So here we have inspiratory muscles and inspiratory neurons and expiratory neurons in the brain stem of the respiratory center. So during the inspiration, these neurons having the highest rate of action potential. During expiration, the expiratory cells or expiratory neurons in the brain stem stimulates maximally. So inspiration, expiration, inspiration and expiration. And C5, cervical segment, fifth segment, and T6, T5, T11, T10. So these are the respiratory neuronal pathway of the spinal cord, cut section of the spinal cord, and their recording action potentials. So these are the action potentials of the respiratory center itself in the medulla oblongata. So these are at various levels, and here the phrenic nerve is chief output motor neuron to the respiratory muscles. During inspiration, the phrenic nerve increasing the activity. During expiration, phrenic nerve inhibits, excite, inhibit, inspiration, expiration, inspiration, expiration. During inspiration, the T5 at the thoracic segment, fifth segment of the thoracic spinal cord, the neurons which are supplying to the external intercostal muscles are under firing during inspiration. So that means external intercostal muscle are apparently involved in the inspiratory process, and during expiration external intercostal muscles are quiet like phrenic nerve, and whereas internal intercostal muscles are fired during the expiration process, during the expiration, and they are inhibited during the inspiratory process. That means internal intercostal muscles are helpful in the expiration, external intercostal muscles are helping in the inspiratory process. So this is how the action potential response seen in the different levels of the respiratory centers and other centers of the spinal cord which are supplying to the specific muscles or parts of the respiratory system. So what is ventilation? During the exercise, when we switch on the exercise from here, the respiratory rate gradually increases. The ventilation means the respiratory rate into tidal volume. So respiratory frequency into tidal volume gives you ventilation. So in liters per minute. So this is ventilation, liters per minute. Number of respirations, number of inspiration or expirations per minute into how much volume being taken per breath. So these are the product of ventilation. Ventilation is the function of tidal volume, how much volume you taken in, the volume per breath. So this is the respiratory frequency. I may be having the 20 time respiration frequency for 600 ml of tidal volume. So we may get around so 12 liters per minute. So this is how ventilation usually calculates respiratory frequency, tidal volume. So in the phase, if you divide the exercise as a phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So phase 1 is initial phase where the ventilation gradually picks up, and there is a gradual exponential in the phase 2, and once the maximum exercise capacity is attained, so the ventilation will no longer increases, it becomes the plateau. Once the person reaches to the exhaustive state, so it will give up the exercise and the ventilatory rate gradually decreases during the recovery. So this is how the ventilation response during the exercise is seen. So ventilatory response in Indian elite athletes touching approximately 120 liters per minute in our Indian athletes. We could see during the exercise training they attaining they could reach up to 120 liters per minute as a ventilation towards the end of their exercise, violational fatigue. And this is the simple overall picture of the respiratory centers present in the dorsal ventral respiratory group of muscles, dorsal and ventral respiratory neurons, respiratory group of neurons, and these the dotted one are the motor output, and the solid lines indicate the sensory input to the respiratory center. So this is lungs. The feedback is going from the lungs, mechanical mechanical stretch receptor and receptors from the respiratory muscles, metabolic receptor from the respiratory muscles, or reaching to the center, respiratory center present in the middle oblongate and pons junctional area, and supramedullary inputs, those are from the motor cortex higher center input, and this is the feedback of the chemoreceptors from the respiratory center. Just next to the respiratory center we have CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, where the respiratory centers are detecting the concentration of the H plus ions. So this is the feedback coming to the respiratory centers, and also the feedback coming from the peripheral chemoreceptors, carotid chemoreceptor, aortic chemoreceptors, and basis on this we have the motor output through the different neurons, motor neurons, and the respiratory pump. So this is the phrenic motor neuron, and this is cranial nerve, 9th and 12th cranial nerve, supplying the upper airway muscles and bronchial muscles. So respiratory muscles, adaptation, and the respiratory muscles, diaphragm and abdomen. So these from here the muscles, from muscles we have the sensors, mainly proprioceptory sensor, proprioception, also reaching to the respiratory centers. So as I mentioned in earlier slide, the respiratory system or respiratory center is the one who decides the complete output according to demand of exercise, according to a response to the particular exercise. However, the respiratory center apparently receives the chemical sensation from the various centers, peripheral and central chemoreceptor chemical sensation, and mechanoreceptive response from the muscles itself and lungs. So, and finally it gives up the output, motor command, to the respiratory muscles through phrenic nerve and other cranial nerves. So this is how respiratory center integrates. And however, the respiratory center integrates with the cardiovascular system. So oxygen pulse means amount of oxygen being pumped by one beat, amount of oxygen being supplied by one beat of the heart. So respiratory system always synchronized with the cardiovascular system. So these are the references for further studies. You may please refer, and I just excluded some slides in order to avoid the confusion. Respiratory system adaptation and cardiovascular adaptations are discussed in this video, and mainly the cardiorespiratory centers works simultaneously, synergetically, in order to meet the demands of the exercise.